And speaking of, cheap plug for Shane, you did a really nice piece on the site comparing the some of the Hart Trophy front runners on the forward side. And we figured we might as well have a chat about the Hart Trophy contenders. Shane looked exclusively at forwards because it made sense, I think, to do an apples to apples comparison. So you didn't have people jumping in the comments being, how come you can compare Roman Josi to Jonathan Huberdeau and Matthew, Austin Matthews? And the answer is, well, I mean, the roles are different
jobs.
Yeah,
different jobs completely. That I wrote that in there too. I was just like, Yossi's where he's supposed to be and how he's supposed to play is not the same as even comparing Matthews to Huberdeau and Gaudreau is different. Their jobs are different. So it forwards, at least, like the attacking wise, they can flip flop sometimes, move positions, but D, especially goaltender, like there's no way I could compare what Shesterkin has done properly to a forward. So.
Let's differentiate, because just so folks know, there are various awards that the NHL gives out, most of which, not all, but most, are voted on by the Professional Hockey Writers Association. So generally speaking, here's the way it works. So there's the season ending, the All-Star teams. There's the first and second All-Star team, which are voted on by the PHWA. So the first All-Star team is a goalie, 2 defensemen, and 3 forwards. The forwards are the goalie is voted. I believe it's there's a bunch of goalies voted on, and I believe it's the first ranked person is the first All-Star team goalie. The second ranked is the second All-Star team goalie. For defensemen, they're all voted together in one blob, and it's the top 2, and then the next 2 are first 2 are the first All-Star team, the second 2 are the second All-Star team. Seems pretty logical. Centers, again, all voted together. You vote for a bunch of centers, and then the top 2 vote getters are first and second All-Stars, respectively. Wingers, not like the defensemen, we bundle them all together. Wingers, we bundle them separately. So left wingers and right wingers were voted on separately. And this is the kind of thing that the PHWA actually puts out what they call, I think that's the term they use is the clarifiers, where they simply send out a thing saying, hey guys, remember, Matthew Tkachuk plays on this wing.
He's a right wing.
He's a right wing. He's primarily a right wing this year, so we haven't gotten sent the clarifying list yet. I assume it's going to come out with the ballots. But yeah, it's the kind of thing where, you're not supposed to. The idea is, for example, let's just say Alex Ovechkin. Alex Ovechkin should be voted on for one position, because if you split up his votes between a couple positions, that's very weird and dumb. And the association would like people to not do that. And so they tell people don't do that and send out a list of position clarifiers. So those are the positional things. So PHWA does not vote on the Vezina. That's the general managers, but we vote on the positional all-stars. We also vote on the Hart, which is for the most valuable to their team of all positions. We also vote on the Selke, which is defensive forward, the Norris, which is overall defenseman ability, as in all around excellence at the defenseman position, which can mean a lot of different things. Typically, it means you score a lot of points as a defenseman. Yeah. That's not exclusively what it means, but it's generally been the common interpretation. But there's a lot of different things. So when you're going through the list of folks, and Shane and I are going to go through, sort of, for lack of a better term, from borderline contenders to strong contenders, we're going to go through the guys that we're both sort of banding around as potential Hart candidates. If you're a defenseman, you can be voted on for the Hart and the Norris. Typically speaking, if you win the Norris, you're probably going to get some votes for the Hart from someone. Typically not a lot. The top goaltender, the Vezina winner, as voted by the GMs, typically gets some votes for Hart. Not a lot. It's usually the Hart has trended towards being a forward-centric award, mostly because the primacy of goal scoring and point scoring sort of leads it to be that. It's not to say that we've had Hart winners from the blue line in the past. We've had Jose Theodore, I think, might be the most recent goaltender who won. That was very controversial because that was that 01-02 season when Jerome McGinley got knocked off a few ballots.
Not in this market, Mike. No, Theodore was the last goal. Theodore was the last goalie in 02, I think it was.
01-02.
It was. That was the year he got 50. That was the year he got his first 50. Yeah,
and I believe he won the Art Ross that year.
He did. He won the Ted Lindsay. I think it was called the Ted Lindsay back then,
or
Lester B. Pearson.
It was the Lester B. Pearson now. Yeah. So
he won. The players voted again as the best player.
To differentiate, so the NHLPA votes on one award. It's the Ted Lindsay Award, named after founder of the NHLPA. The first union head they had, Ted Lindsay, who was an excellent hockey player and then became a really important figure in players' rights and setting up the NHLPA initially. So the NHLPA votes for simply the most valuable player. It is simply who is the best player in the NHL. They all vote for it and they get a trophy. So in 01-02, for example, Jerome McGinley was voted. It was called the Lester B. Pearson back then, but he got the award for best NHL player as voted by the other players. So that is exclusively, they say it's just the best player. It's most outstanding player. The Hart is most valuable to your team, and that it's a lot of context. So we're going to go through in some detail that some of the guys that we're kicking around as candidates. Shane is not a PHWA member, so he doesn't get a vote. I am a PHWA member. I don't know if I get a vote yet. We'll find out when ballots come out.
If he does, I will pander to him. I will pander. I will shamelessly pander. He will do it. We all know, and I trust Pike enough. Pike will always do it very professionally and the way it's supposed to be done.
Not very little.
I'm still going to pander.
Very little ideas for that. So let's start off. We're going to go really quickly through three guys who we like, but are probably on the outside looking in for the voting. They are Toronto's Mitch Marner and Calgary's Matthew Tkachuk and Florida's Jonathan Huberdeau. Marner is basically the Tkachuk to Austin Matthews Gaudreau, or you can flip that vice versa. But Marner is the guy who feeds him the rock, and Matthews is the guy who buries it in the parlance of basketball, for example. Marner's an excellent setup guy. I think the challenge for him is his numbers just aren't quite as gaudy as some of the other guys on the list. And I would say more than anyone else, you could make a case for Leon Draisaitl and Austin Matthews, or Leon Draisaitl and this kind of thing too. I think the fact that, when you're on a team and you're the second best guy behind a guy who is simply incredible, like Marner is, we'll throw out some superlatives later, but spoiler, Austin Matthews is really good at hockey and he's really great at scoring goals. And so if you're the next best guy and you're not quite as good at him at scoring goals, you're simply going to look second best, even though you're very, very good. So Marner probably gets punished more than he should for that.
Marner gets a bit of a bonus because he kills penalties and he does kill them well. So that's something that a lot of these stars do. Marner does kill penalties and he does kill them really well. I haven't watched. I've missed like the last 3 weeks. Keefe might have shuffled them off, but because they did go out and get some really nice defensive players and like Camp and like that.
They still
Marner is defensively. Marner is quite well. I like your comparison to the Gaudreau line, but I think Tkachuk is, and it's weirdly to say, is more like Bunting because he's the corner guy. He goes in and retrieves it. Kachuk's like the Marner, Gaudreau's like the Marner, and Lindholm's like the Matthews because Lindholm's got the shot. But a great line comparison, both elements of all players. But Matthew Tkachuk's about both these two players we're talking about, Marner and Tkachuk, are on pace to get over 100 points. Should get over 100 points based on how much goals are being scored in the NHL this season. It's ridiculous. It's fun. And we love it.
Again, like Tkachuk doesn't kill penalties. Leon Draisaitl doesn't kill penalties. Jonathan Huberdeau sometimes kills penalties, sometimes doesn't. They've sort of tried to cycle him off a bit, I think, recently because they want to keep him fresh. I would say the four guys, sort of the honorable mentions, why do we only get 5 votes for this guys, are probably Marner, Tkachuk, Draisaitl, and Huberdeau, because there's just
the line mates, kind of like that's what I call them, the line mates, because they're really good, but they all have a teammate outperforming.
Yeah. So I'll do. Let's when we lump these guys in as honorable mentions, it's us saying
not an insult.
It's saying of the how many. Let's do some math here. Let's just do some basic math here. So there are. Let's say there are 20, 19 players. Let's not count backup goalies because we love you backup goalies, but most of the time you don't factor into things too much. So every team dresses 18 skaters, and then they have one goalie who plays most of the time. There are 32 players in the NHL, 32 teams in the NHL. So that is just a shade over 600 players in the NHL in terms of regular guys who play all the time. And if you factor in injuries, there's probably closer to like maybe 650 players in the NHL.
700 even. 700, yeah.
Yeah, there'll be 700 guys who play significant minutes. There's probably, I'd say, let's say around 600 who are simply NHL regulars, if you want to define them that way. So all we're saying is, and we can hear the teeth grinding up north, up the road at home office. Please don't cancel our paychecks. We love Leon Draisaitl. We're just saying Leon Draisaitl, in terms of his case for Hart voting, is simply, he'll be top 10, undoubtedly top 10. I think the challenge is, though, like justifying putting him in the top half of your ballot is challenging.
Well, it's a 5-vote ballot, right? And you get 5 points for first, 4 for second, 3, and it goes down from there. So, yeah. But you can only put 5 people on your ballot is the thing. So if it, like a lot of the voters, the whole definition of the word, which is another thing, is most valuable to your team. A lot of people probably have an issue with putting 2 players from the same team on one.
Well, let's
ballot.
Let's put the Hart.
How valuable you are.
Let's put the Hart cart before the horse for a second here. I think a lot of, if you're being honest, a lot of people who have ballots are probably going to do some combination of McDavid, Matthews, Gaudreau, top 3. Some combination. Maybe there'll be another player who sort of jostles one of those guys down. But if 3 of your top 4 guys are from those teams, for example, if you're voting Matthews 1, it's challenging to really justify putting Marner on your ballot. Maybe you can keep him at 5, but that's going to hurt Marner, even though Marner's very good. Same with McDavid. You're saying McDavid's the most valuable player to his team. Can you say that his teammate Leon Draisaitl, who's amazing, is the 5th most valuable player to his team? It's challenging. It's sort of like, back in the day, I made this comparison on Sportsnet 960 The Fan with Pat and Matt earlier in the week. I love the Sedin twins. They're so friggin' good. They got punished so much for being a pair because there's 2 of them, and that's
Didn't
the
Henrik
problem.
win? Didn't Henrik
won? That was a year I think that Daniel sort of was hurt part of the year or something. So you actually got a chance to sort of see them separate for a while. But I think that's the challenge. Like, barring an injury, it's really hard to say, well, I know it's like the year that Draisaitl won, we saw significant time for him away from McDavid, and he was awesome. Like, he deserved that.
That was the first year he potted 50 too. Like he potted 50 goals that year, and that's a huge thing. This is Matthews' first. Well, we'll get to him later. But for the lower end guys, Huberdeau and his point production, I just want to touch on. Alan Walsh is going to roast me for this, but he doesn't play on the first line either. He does. He doesn't play with Barkov. He gets it split up. He plays on the second line with Reinhart and another center. I can't remember, but Barkov plays with Verhaeghe and Duclair, and they both split how much matchups, and Barkov gets the harder matchups. So there's just a bit missing for Huberdeau. He's got the point. He's got the counting totals, and the counting totals do matter. Good.
He's so good.
I had him as a lock for Team Canada if they went to the Olympics. Like that's not a slight. Like, that's how much I like him. He's just not the same tier. Does he get punished for Florida having a deep enough team that you can do that? In a way, yes. We're not saying this is a fair process. We're just saying, again, Alan Walsh, we love you. Anyone who wants to listen, Alan Walsh, one of my favorite podcasts to listen to when I'm doing work is the Agent Provocateur podcast with Alan Walsh and Adam Wilde on this the Steve Dangle Podcast Network. Hi, Steve. But yeah, it's good. Like, he's very good. He gets punished for being on a deep team because he's deep. There's a deep enough team they can move guys around. Again, still same thing, same kind of thing with Draisaitl. Draisaitl, they sort of move him around in, he's sort of a secondary guy, sort of, but he's such a friggin' good secondary guy. So we're sorry there's only so many spots at the table. Better luck next time. You're still very good players. You're amazing.